I'm calling to order the County Commission workshop for Thursday, May 30th, and this is regarding Reith Riley and some of the issues that have come up. Before we get going, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Since we don't have our nameplates here, we'll introduce ourselves. I'm Vijay Kaur, I'm the Commission President.
My name is Sheila Matias. I'm the Vice President.
Rich Mrozinski. It says here I'm a member.
And we will get started with a little bit of an input from Reith Riley about why we are here, what are the things that happen, and how, and what are your plans to make sure that the roads that have been constructed are of good quality, and also the work that is currently being done in 2019 will continue to meet the standards, because some of the problems you have had in your LaPorte plant. So with that, I'll open it and you can go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Keith Rose. I'm the President and CEO of Reith Riley Construction. I do have a prepared statement that, if you will indulge, I will go through, and then I'll gladly answer any questions when I'm completed.
Sure.
Reith Riley's been in business for over 100 years, and for the last 34 years, we've been an employee-owned company, 100% employee-owned. During this time, we successfully completed tens of thousands of projects, including a whole host of projects for LaPorte County. We're extremely proud of our track record and our reputation in the industry at the local, state, and national levels. Our company focuses on honesty and integrity, safety, quality, and customer service. Even so, we are not always perfect. No one is, and thus that's why we're here this evening. The recent NDOT audit discovered shortcomings in the documentation of individuals at our LaPorte lab, and thus we have a temporary suspension of that plant. We subsequently confirmed what they discovered in the audit. Those corrective measures that we have outlined in our April 29th letter to NDOT, I believe you have been provided a copy of previously.
Yes.
These measures involve specific personnel actions and specific policy and procedure changes. To date, we've made significant progress on these efforts, and we're confident that NDOT will lift the suspension sooner as opposed to later. It is worth noting that neither NDOT nor any other county agency has requested, nor have we provided, any plan or program to inspect, test, or repair any paving completed out of the LaPorte plant in 2018. Regardless of that situation, we always accept responsibility and we always stand behind our work. More specifically, we are very comfortable with and fully stand behind the quality of our work performed for LaPorte County in 2018. So much so that we are willing to provide a 5-year payment warranty for the entire 2018 work that was completed. Not just isolated areas, no gray area, the entire project. Regarding the 2019 contract work, it is our intention to fulfill that contract currently utilizing the South Bend and Valparaiso plants until such time as the LaPorte plant is reinstated. We believe this is in the best interest of all parties involved to keep the project moving forward. Providing asphalt mix from either of these locations could be done with very minimal difference in trucking distance, with absolutely no impact to the quality of the pavement. We sincerely regret that this situation has occurred, and you have to be here tonight to address it. We trust that you recognize our prompt corrective actions, along with our commitment to both the work performed in 2018 and our commitment to the work yet to be performed in 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, do you want to address some of the concerns that were discussed here earlier, and especially about his statement about some of the things that we need to do moving forward?
Yeah. The things that we discussed properly and thought were we've got 3 items here that we thought most important. One, first being proper testing procedures, and I think what we discussed was to us, the commissioners or the highway department, choose an independent firm. We have Lochner already on retainer to take the samples and take them to, we've been discussing K&S Laboratories.
K&S is what we've done on Johnson Road in the past.
And have those tests run there to make sure that the mix is what it's supposed to be according to the contract. Right now I'm speaking directly about the community crossing projects that are ongoing. I believe that calls for a Class C NDOT mix in the contract. So make sure we're getting that mixed and it's properly within the parameters of the specifications. I think that's the most important thing, and I think Mr. Rose touched on the possible remediation of any repairs. I suggest we do maybe 5 or 6 samples, 5 or 6 different areas in the county, projects from last year, and make sure that was up to our annual specs for last year, which would have been a Class B NDOT mix. And if there's any, unless you want to test every road, I mean, these tests get expensive. So, and I don't, did Mr. Rose say that Reeve Riley would pay for any testing from
I believe that was our position, to go ahead with providing the 5-year warranty for the entire project. You can go out and test post-testing on any pavement. You will not get the exact material that was placed the year before. It's similar to doing a pressure-treated deck this year. You put the deck down this year, you come back next year, the timbers have aged. Doesn't mean the deck's no good. No, it's aged. The pavement has aged a year, so it's not the same pavement that was placed the day that was placed. You can go out and take a core. When you core that material, you're cutting that pavement, and now you're cutting the aggregate, so you're now changing the gradation of that aggregate. There are some simple tests that you can take, do post-construction, but they will not be conclusive. And that's isolated in spots, 5, 6, how many spots you choose, but doesn't represent the whole work in totality that was placed last year. So we're extremely confident in the entire pavement that was placed last year to put a 5-year performance pavement warranty with standard parameters that are in pavement warranties. We've done hundreds of these in Michigan over the years and are very comfortable with them and very confident in them.
So what you're saying is that you are going to give like a 5-year warranty.
Yes, sir.
On the work that has been done, and so we're also looking at doing some testing on the roads that have been done, and I think Bob talked about 5, 6 samples on the roads that have been done, core samples, and would you be willing to pay for that? I think that was your question.
Talking about this year, 19, or
no, the ones that were done in 18.
Right. Well, maybe we could just we could get with John Smith here and maybe a rep from Reeve Riley and just go out and check all of last year's roads and see if we see any trouble spots and test those. Or we can do half dozen or so testing, different spots all over the county. But I agree with what Mr. Rose says. There's depreciation, I would think a good testing firm would have a way to rate that depreciation, how fast and how much. So
the people who do the test, do they take that age and depreciation into
I
consideration?
think they would if we asked them to,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just jump in. Destructive testing is not uncommon in your business, apparently. I've had to brush up on all kinds of asphalt-related matters in the last month, but there should be 3 things involved in the testing from what I've been able to gather. Asphalt binder content, which is to ascertain how much liquid asphalt is in there, and that's the most expensive part of the product. Gradation, which you mentioned, and quality of the aggregate, the size of the particles, and the type of aggregate and how strong they are, and then the density and compaction. And it sounds like the density and compaction, while that may change over time, you related to a deck. A deck will change in a year on the surface, but the deck itself will not change. So I would say that destructive testing should be done at least in a few locations, 6, 7 locations. I think that's smart. And if you're willing to put a 5-year warranty, I'm sure that it won't be a problem for you to cover the cost of that for our taxpayers.
We don't have a problem with that.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Mitch, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
The 20, we were awarded community crossings funds in 2018, and that was for Severs and Joliet roads.
Okay.
Now, on those projects, we do have an inspector. We hired Lochner. Also, there's testing done.
Okay.
Just like we did on Johnson Road, and it was mixed design plate samples, and we recommend to do the same thing. Now, for NDOT jobs, I know this isn't an NDOT job, but for surface, it's every 600 tons they require a plate sample. Maybe I kind of discussed that with our inspector. Maybe if we did one every 1,200 ton on Johnson, not specifically on our community crossings, so it'd be Severs and Joliet Road.
So this is what you're suggesting is on the roads that are currently being constructed.
Well, yeah, community crossings, though, only Severs and Johnson.
And Johnson.
We could do that for our annual bids as well. Random, yeah, exactly. So I think that's something that needs to be done, definitely looked at. We have, on our surface, we have a C-mix design, and I know specifically Reith Wright does a lot of B-mix. So that's definitely, we want to make sure we get the C-mix on the surface for both those roads, because that's what our bid was, so we want to get what our bid was.
Okay.
So
We would support owner testing on all projects going forward.
Okay. All right.
and
One of the questions that came up was the LaPorte plant was close by, and if you're going to bring it from other plants because of the distance, will it be okay to maintain the quality?
Yeah, I don't know who came up with that statement, but either they're not very informed in this industry or they're misleading.
Okay.
Routinely, we haul mix 40, 50 miles with no problem one way. I've even hauled mix 80 miles with no problem within specification. And the case in point, the Joliet Road, there's 5 miles difference between the Valparaiso plant and the LaPorte plant.
Okay.
It's inconsequential.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, we had a job on 14 and they were hauling 1 hour from their dairy plant to 14 and everything was fine. I mean, they had 60 trucks running and the mix, once they hit the paver, was fine. Everything was good on that job. I mean, I'll have a temperature gun if, you know, if that's something you guys would like me to do, take temperature, which
We do as well. All of our crews have a temperature gun.
and I'm almost positive that everything will be fine.
Just to
Whether-
clarify there.
yeah,
Okay.
if that's what you guys, you know, if that's what the commissioners like.
All right. Is there anything else that we need to address?
I think we pretty well covered the issues, you know, testing and even now the temperature testing, just to double check, and I can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now.
Yes, go ahead.
We definitely need a copy of the 5-year warranty, what that entails and what it covers.
Okay.
How many copies would you like?
Did you bring it already?
I did.
Okay, very good. So if you can
There's
share
about
it
5
with us.
copies.
Thank you.
This is the standard MDOT, you said?
It's taken off of a combination of basically a CPM, Capital Pro and Maintenance Warranty program.
Joe, from the legal perspective, is there anything that you would like to address?
Well, I think having, for instance, if the commission is inclined to accept the warranty, to have that agended for the 5th so that you can act then, and then put any other restrictions, requirements that you want for testing on the record as well at your meeting on the 5th. I mean, we can agenda it and make sure that it's considered then at that particular meeting.
Okay, all right. So I know this is, for all of you from Retrial, this is a workshop, so we don't make any decisions here. This is to gather information, and that's what we're doing right now. And then we are going to review this, and then we'll agenda this item for our next meeting, and then we'll go ahead and make decisions at that time. Should I have anything else you want to address?
So, yeah, I think that it's important for the public is holding us accountable. And, Mr. Rose, I really appreciated your comments and your in your statement. We appreciate the fact that Reith Riley is a good regional employer. You help take care of a lot of families in our county and other counties around us. That's your job is to pave roads, provide jobs, and make money. And I'm cool with that. Our job is to protect the assets that our taxpayers pay for, and to make sure that they get the best value for their dollar. Just that's the job of an elected official, and certainly something that I think all three of us take pretty darn seriously. So, part of our job is to hear complaints, and that comes with the territory. So that's not especially concerning to me. It is concerning to me when I speak with officials from the state agency that are alarming, and when they talk about the closure of your plant as a historic move, that it wasn't just a bookkeeping error, that it was a bookkeeping error, but it was volumes of bookkeeping errors. It wasn't just one load or 2 loads or 5 loads. It was lots of loads. And, I've been learning about paving. I learned a lot when I was in Michigan City as the mayor, but I now have made it a point to try to learn as much as I can. Paving seems to be kind of like a recipe, and I'm a cook, but I'm not a baker, but it sounds like it's sort of like a baking operation. Everything has to be just so for the product to be right. It has to be prepped right, it has to have the right ingredients, it has to be the right temperature, and it has to be compacted correctly with, what do they call it, a heavy vibratory compactor, excuse me. So heavy compaction makes a big difference on the longevity of the road. They talk a lot about the base, and if we're just putting 2-inch ribbons on top of bad roads, we're going to get a bad road, 2 years later. So I guess my concern is if it was enough of a problem for INDOT, and we follow INDOT's recipe. INDOT is an expert in roads. They lay a lot more roads than we do, even though we have a large county. So we take their recipe and we say, okay, if it's good enough for INDOT, it must be good enough for us. If INDOT has a problem with the recipe and they shut your plant down, which I know is not normal, I asked that question last time and I was told it was a bookkeeping error. I'm not maybe a road maker, but I do know about bookkeeping errors, and I would say that it's got to be more than a bookkeeping error for INDOT to take such a decisive action. So that being said, how can we be sure that the roads that you laid for us using the same recipe as INDOT, and INDOT shut you down because the recipe was wrong, that our recipe wasn't wrong as well? And I guess I'm just putting in layman's terms, nothing fancy, I just want to understand that question.
It's not a matter of the recipe being wrong, it's a matter of the gentleman not documenting the changes that he made every single time he made a change. When you make a mix, you're bringing aggregate out of a quarry. It's not as if you go to the store and you buy flour and it's the same flour every single time. Mm-hmm. Aggregates change. You can't make one piece of aggregate identically the same. So you have to monitor your aggregates as they come in. Check your gradations, check your wash count, your P200, your dust that's in the aggregate. You need to monitor your recycled material. So you got to check your materials, and there's changes you make along the way to make sure you keep that recipe within the guidelines.
Right.
As he made those changes, he did not thoroughly document the changes. It's not the matter that the recipe was wrong. It's a matter of he didn't thoroughly document the changes that he made along the way.
I guess my question is, if he didn't document, then we don't know what the recipe was, and so the recipe could have been wrong, or maybe it's perfect. How do you prove that the recipe was correct if he didn't document and follow?
And that's exactly the gray area that I can see somebody would go down that path, and that's why we went to a 5-year warranty to stand behind it, as opposed to saying, well, this part is this way, this part's that way. We go out and test 4 or 5 spots. That's those 4 or 5 spots. What about the rest of the project? That's why we're willing to stand behind the performance of the product.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Rich, any other questions? Okay. Yes.
I guess I have a question. We want to make sure that they've taken measures to avoid this from happening again. Have they tightened up on your record keeping or documentation, or what have you done there?
The gentleman that was responsible is no longer an employee of the company. His supervisor has been demoted to his position. His supervisor has now been demoted to that gentleman's position. We've installed new procedures and guidelines. We've instituted not only internal auditing, but we have 2 outside hired engineering companies that are doing auditing as well on not only that plant, but all the plants. We took and expanded this across the whole organization. So we've been very serious, very diligent about it. The policy and procedure changes and the personnel changes. And again, NDOT is in the central office. The folks that we've dealt with are very pleased with the measures that we put in place and the steps that we've taken. They are monitoring our performance across northern Indiana as far as instituting these changes and procedures, and then they will revisit the status of the LaPorte plant.
Well, I guess I'll ask, can we be supplied with some of that documentation so we can learn how to read it and understand it and make sure that they're not making mistakes?
And we can certainly provide you with what we provided the department.
Yeah, if we can get that information from the consulting engineering firm that you hired to do that.
We can give you a copy of their contracts.
Very good.
I guess that's all we got.
Any other questions?
I don't think so.
You know, to summarize, what you're saying is you're going to stand behind your work, give a 5-year warranty, and we're going to do some testing on the roads that were done last year, and that the cost you're going to cover for that testing.
Yes, sir.
And then you're going to, for the plants that are currently certified and they are functioning, you have some engineering firms who are helping you maintain the quality, and you're going to provide that information to our highway department.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else you would
No, I
like
think
to?
that's great.
Okay, very good. I think if there are no other questions, I think we'll stand adjourned then. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.